go to my YouTube channel and make sure.
Yeah, I think you have to click live in the YouTube. I can't see anything yet. Oh wait, I have to click on. Which one? Oh,
See if we are up. And yes, all right. So it is live
直播影片是这个
now. Let me do that. All right, we're gonna share this to a couple of social media places just to do the standard there. Share that there. Share it on my Facebook. All right, so while I'm sharing this stuff, I'm here with Luke Truman, who is a Chinese speaker living in. You are living in Taiwan currently, correct?
Yep, in Taipei.
Cool. And I can't remember. I know that I did something on your channel. Have you ever done something on my channel before? I don't know if we've done an interview on my channel before.
No, this is the first time, I think. You came on mine like maybe like I want to say a month or two ago.
Yeah,
and we talked a lot about Chinese, and this is the first time I'm coming on. So thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, man, I'm happy that you decided to come along. Luke is a fellow YouTuber. It is Full-Time Fluency here on YouTube, and I like talking to Luke. That's a common theme with a lot of this podcast is it's people that I enjoy talking to because that's what makes it a little bit easier. Anyway, but yeah. So Luke, if you want to, you can. Do you want to do just a small introduction or whatever?
Elevator pitch. Yeah, sure. So I guess I talk a lot about languages on my channel as well. Mostly about stuff in the past has mostly been about Cantonese and Mandarin, but I have did a 6-month stint where I did a bit about Spanish as well. And I got into languages basically a long time ago. When I was at university, I played table tennis, met a lot of people from Hong Kong, met my current girlfriends, and started learning Cantonese to speak to her friends and family. And then from trying to self-study Cantonese for about 2 years, I think I got to a relatively good level. And then that kind of sparked my interest in language learning in general and specifically Asia as well. So I wanted to come to Taiwan and learn Mandarin, and that's what I'm doing now is in Taiwan learning Mandarin, and I've been going for about 11 months now on the Chinese. So,
yeah. I was trying to think of the last video that I remember, because you make update videos. And I was trying to think, did you make maybe a 9-month or a 10-month video?
I did a 10-month video of me interviewing people on the street.
That's right.
Speaking with strangers on the street, and that's got English subtitles.
Yeah, because you were doing was that for like animal activism type of, right?
Yeah. So it was for a group called Anonymous for the Voiceless, which is vegan outreach, and I was speaking to strangers on the streets of Taipei about veganism and animal agriculture, and I've added English subtitles to that. But yeah, it's quite cringy watching it back because I'm noticing how bad my pronunciation was in the video, and there's so many mistakes. But that's what a progress video is for. So if it was perfect, then there'd be nothing to improve on. So,
right. How are people in China? How do they receive the idea of veganism and like animal cruelty and stuff?
You mean in Taiwan?
I mean, in Taiwan. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so it's a bit complicated here because I don't know how much reviewers care to talk about this, but the religion and vegetarianism is heavily intertwined here. So when people think of vegetarianism, they think of Buddhism, they think of the Chiang Kai-shek followers and stuff like that because they are vegetarians, one of their practices, and they also restrain from other stuff as well, like onions and garlic, because it affects meditation and things like that. So I've been asked if I was a Buddhist before when I've been eating out at vegetarian restaurants and stuff. So I think in terms of vegetarianism is very widely accepted, but most people assume it's religion related, which can mean when you're trying to talk about it from an animal rights or an environmental protection perspective, it can kind of confuse things a little bit because they think of sushi as a religious word, and then it's not what we're trying to do. So they might see what we're doing and they just think of Buddhism and then get turned off. So yeah.
That's interesting to me. I knew that cultures would accept it differently. Because in America it's still it's more accepted than what it used to be, but there's still a weird stigma behind it.
I mean, like people are happy to speak about it and open about it. It's just it's not very well known about at the moment. So
Gotcha.
like people are happy to speak about it and open minded. But I find a lot of the stuff that people say like about that you can't get protein and stuff like that
Yeah.
is a universal myth, I guess, as it said. Like people say it to me in England and say it to me here. So
Yeah, no, and I think I've talked to you before about like I've done stints of vegetarian and veganism just in terms of trying to lose weight, and
mm.
but I told you I'm a really bad vegan or vegetarian because what I'm eating is like I feel like if I would do the idea of actual whole foods like fruits and vegetables and stuff, it'd be fine. But like when I'm doing
Mm.
vegetarian, I'm eating like Gardein fake chicken tenders and then stuff
Yeah.
like that. So
Yeah, I mean, if you're eating like Guardian chips, Oreo, Skittles, it's not going to be a healthy diet, you know. So
yeah, and that was ultimately why I stopped, is because I was like, at what point is me eating insanely processed food better than not? So it was a weird thing.
yeah, I think I mean, in terms of, I don't want to go on and offer too much about nutrition, but in terms of whether you, regardless of whether you eat meat or not, you want to be getting a lot of your calories from unprocessed plant foods like fruits, vegetables, and
Right.
whole grains and things for optimal health. But
Yeah.
yeah, we came to talk about languages, so
Yeah, yeah.
it's not
Sorry, sorry. I just that
down a
I
rabbit hole.
I was interested because I did see that, but I know that culturally that's a it is just a whole
Yeah, yeah,
different thing. In terms of one thing I do want to talk about, I can't remember exactly where I found your channel. I
yeah.
really don't remember. Like I feel like yours is a weird channel. Like there's a lot of people that I know specifically the moment I found their channel. Like Dakota that was on yesterday, I found it through an Esperanto search. Aaron from Fingtam Languages, I found through that. Like I know specific spots, but I can't remember where I found your channel. But I do know that you, and I'm thinking maybe it was through Matt versus Japan in his. He was doing the interview with A-Jatters, and I remember yours was interview with A-Catters, all Chinese all the time,
It was all Cantonese all the time at that
or
point. Yeah,
all Cantonese all the time. Okay, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And so I want to talk a little bit about input versus output because you are, and I know that me and you have talked about this on your channel before, like because we're both we're big input people. Like when you are learning, like when you started learning Cantonese, for example, or even with your Mandarin stuff now, at what point? How long do you wait to output? Like how much is it just purely input, and then how long do you wait for output?
Yeah, I could talk about Cantonese, but I think in you got to put it in the frame of reference that I didn't really know what I was doing when I was trying to figure everything out.
Sure.
So if you're looking at it in Mandarin or Spanish, I waited about 3 or 4 months till I started speaking, and then did a lot of input before that. That's and you know if you're talking about whether it's best to start speaking or not, I actually started speaking quite early with Cantonese, and I found a lot of the time in the italki sessions I was just kind of like scrambling for words. I couldn't understand anything they were saying,
Mm,
and most of it was just kind of a lot of it was going through PowerPoint slides and like speaking English, and I didn't really find it that good, you know, like and a lot of basic like gaps in my knowledge. And then when I waited with Spanish and again for Mandarin as well, like a lot of that initial struggle that I associate with trying to speak at the start wasn't there. So like even though it was only a few months, obviously you're not going to understand everything perfectly, but like you at least have something there to try and defend yourself. So
right.
um, I find that good. If I wait too long, I personally find speaking really motivating and enjoyable. So I'm doing this for a hobby. I'm going to speak, especially um, when I'm here in Taiwan. I speak every day, so
Right.
I like output a lot. I think input can like prime your mind and it's, if you're going to try and train output from the get go, it's really difficult. But if you're trying to train output when you can understand it, it's a lot easier. So I think from an efficiency point of view, it makes sense to focus on input first, and then it's just a downhill question of what motivates you and what will keep you on the right track and what do you find fun.
Right.
And then even if you only say doing like one iToki a week or every 2 weeks or something, just to kind of for fun, you know, and then you can get most of your input that way. I still think there's no problem with that.
Yeah. And you, I know that you made a video of um, the Chinese like channels that you watch for um,
Mandarin.
Mandarin, and I
Mm.
know that that is for the Taiwanese dialect. Um, So if anybody's watching this or anything, he does have a video. I think you listed like 5 or 6 channels. Like you listed a bunch of stuff, maybe even more
Yeah,
than that. But
I think I listed 5 or 6 with CC subtitles, the ones that you can download,
yeah,
and then there was a few that I liked that didn't have CC subtitles. I just added it in because I like their channel.
yeah. Are you
Um,
to the point in and I'm gonna continue with the input and output, but just out of curiosity, are you still are you to a point in your Mandarin at 11 months in where you can, like, if you're watching a video, you can understand at least a decent portion of it? Like, is your vocabulary like that high of a level?
yeah, I can understand. Again, it depends on the video, the topic, I guess. But like, if it's
Sure.
not too complicated, I can understand most of it. Like, I was watching some stand-up comedian Borten or
Mm-hmm.
what's his name? Brian. This afternoon, I could understand most of that. I was watching Fairy Tale before that and some of the YouTube videos. Adi Dime. I can understand their videos like 90+% of that fine. With or without subtitles. But if it's something more complicated, like I was watching a news story about what's it called? This thing's name the nth room on Telegram in Korea. It's this big thing that's happened. Probably this big like I'm not going to go too much into it, but you can look it up if you're interested. It's this whole thing in Korea, and there was like this Telegram platform like this, and then loads of people were uploading like illegal porn to it, and like loads of people were paying to enter these like chat rooms and paying loads of money, and then there was loads of sorts of horrible stuff in there. So I was watching a news story on that, and again, with the subtitles help and like pausing and looking up words using the proper dictionary and rewinding, I could kind of like understand it. I understood most of it. But that was like a lot of fighting through it and rewinding and pausing and rewinding and
Right.
stuff.
Okay.
And then other stuff I watch, even if I go through slowly, I don't understand very well. Like particularly if there's a comedy sketch or something and there's a lot of political references that goes over my head.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it really depends on the topic, but it's
Yeah.
most not too complicated stuff. I'm okay at the
Cool.
moment.
Yeah,
Like
that
most
makes
TV dramas
sense.
and stuff.
Well, even in English, there's so much stuff. Like I try to stay as polarly opposite as I can of like any kind of political stuff, just because like I have my political opinions, and I'm not saying other people shouldn't have theirs because they absolutely should. But man, it causes such a divide a lot of
Mm.
times. So I try to stay as far away as possible. So sometimes like me and my wife will be watching a show and they'll make a joke and like she'll laugh or not, and I'm like, I don't get it. Like that's how far away I stay from it. Is they'll make stuff
Mm.
references in that. One thing that you said though that sparked my interest, and this actually stems from me watching a Joe Rogan podcast a long time ago. How when you're listening to a Chinese stand-up comedian, does like do you connect with that? Because I know that humor in different languages can be different. Like, how well do you connect with that? Like in terms of like the way the jokes and stuff are.
Uh, yeah, I'm only really familiar with the one guy, Borten.
Mm-hmm.
And I've watched a few of his stuff. I've watched his TED talk as well, which it wasn't about. It was bit about his backstory, and I found I connected with what he says quite a lot. As for other stuff, I'm not sure, but when I'm out with most of my friends here are Taiwanese, and I seem to connect with them all fairly well as well. So I think a lot of the yeah, I think I connect with a lot of the Taiwanese humor pretty well if I understand it, but then a lot of the over politically jokes I kind of don't really understand. So maybe if I understood it, it'd connect with me. But
Right.
like the ones that are not too complicated, I find pretty funny.
Gotcha.
Um, and yeah, a lot of it was similar to sort of jokes that you might hear in the West, I guess. And one of the things that I connected with a lot recently, I watched his TED talk. I don't know if anyone wants me, I can find it and link it in the chat if anyone wants to know what it is. But it was basically talking about his story about just doing stuff for the passion of it and just doing it for fun and like how that's a reason in itself. And he like made this whole like Iron Man costume from scratch, like welding all the metal bits and stuff together, like doing his own cosplay. And people were like, "What is this for? Like homework?" And he was like, "No." He was like, "Oh, are you selling it?" It's like, "No." It's like, "It's just for fun, man." And they were like, "What? You crazy? Like, what? I don't get that." And like a lot of people in Asian culture just the idea of doing something for fun, even in America and the UK, I guess people could be a bit like that, but it's even more in Asia. And he was like, "No, when you're doing something for your passion, you're just doing it for fun. There's no like final destination or whatever. It's just the thing you're doing is already where you're trying to get to.
Yeah.
And yeah, that connected with me quite a lot. His TED talk, because I found um like people always ask like, oh, dude, why you're in Taiwan? Like, oh, is it related to your work? And I'm like, I'm just learning Chinese for fun. And they're like, what? I was like, yeah, it's so much fun. You
Yeah.
know?
It is
But yeah,
funny to like there's some people who like some of my friends, right? Like cuz I made a separate language account. Like I my social media is far it has no like it's not my personal account that turned that like it's just as far from that as possible. And um I have had messages from friends before and they're like, "Oh, why are you learning that?" And I'm like, "It's fun." And they're like, "No, but like what's the reason?" And I'm like, That's my reason." Like and like or like have a guy that I work with and he's like, "Play this game." And I'm like, "My games are languages. At night while you're playing a video game, I'm diving into whatever my jokes on me flavor of the month languages, but like that's what I find fun. It is, you can do it for fun.
yeah. I mean, there's no reason why you can't do both. Like, if you're trying to revive your Spanish, you could jump into like Skyrim in Spanish or something. You know?
I've thought about that, especially because Skyrim is something that I've played so much. um I think that would be. I think some of the vocabulary could kind of hang me up because it's like fantasy based. But I think
But the fantasy based vocabulary is very similar to English and
that's
Spanish,
what. Yeah, that's what I was gonna
like
say. Is that
dragons or dragones or something. You know?
right? Actually I read earlier. Aaron from. Do you know Aaron from Fingtam Languages?
Uh-huh.
I think this is the
Uh-huh.
third. I think this is the third straight day that I've mentioned him on this podcast. He sent me he wrote a story in Spanish. He's writing like because like he's writing a book to teach Spanish, but it's not the same book that it's not the these are my tips. Like he wrote, it's a beginner story and then it feeds into an intermediate story and then like an upper intermediate story and it goes.
Like short story book.
Yeah,
Or
and I read the first lesson, and it's about a dragon. That was the whole. It was about a dragon, and it was actually about a dragon who, like, his mom always fed him like meat, and like he really wanted to try. He loved donuts, and the mom was like, "No, you can't eat donuts. That's not. You won't be smart, and you won't be healthy." And so he goes on this big journey, and he searches through like beehives, and he finds honey, and he searches through like apple trees, and he finds apple. Like it's a whole big thing. It's really cool, man, and it's kind of done in that same vein. Kind of how the Link mini stories are, which I know that you use Link, but you're not like a big mini stories fan. But you know how in the mini stories it does the kind of the circling questions, like it's that same repeat vocabulary.
yeah,
And then he actually ends the first lesson with questions. Does Luis like meat? Yes, he likes meat. Like it's that kind of thing. So,
that's pretty good.
but yeah, man, I've thought about that, and the vocabulary is similar. Because then I know people like my buddy Evan loves to play games in Japanese, and I'm like, man, I couldn't play Skyrim in Japanese now because that vocabulary is going to be so different.
Yeah. Like with someone like Japanese, I guess the kanji would be over big obstacle to get over.
Yeah.
The annoying thing in Chinese is there's very little games like triple A games in the West that get dubbed into Mandarin. The one I'm looking forward to is, have you heard of Witcher 3?
Hmm.
People that make that Project Red are releasing a game called Cyberpunk 2077
Hmm.
soon. And that's going to have full Chinese audio support, so I'm pretty psyched for that.
That is cool. I wonder why.
Um,
I guess is because China doesn't import a lot of stuff from the West, right?
yeah, well, a lot of it's banned.
So, and then I wonder about what about like PlayStation and stuff. I don't know what their relationship with Japan is, but
I'm not sure. Like a lot of it's done in terms they add like subtitles and UI and stuff, but they don't actually do the voices because I guess text translation is probably relatively cheap compared to hiring a full cast of voice actors, right? So
right.
that's less expensive. So unless the market's big, it makes sense not to waste the money on it.
That's true. That makes sense. In terms of going back to the input thing, I'm really easy to
Oh
get
yeah,
derailed in this thing. Do you? Because I know with Matt versus Japan and stuff, they talk about passive listening. Always having the audio on and stuff like that. Do you do that, or do you just have more of a dedicated time that you're actively studying?
um, well, my when I was in England, which is probably the best example to give, I was. I don't try to say like everything I have to do. Let me just try to think the best way to work it. So I kind of had like a set routine. I'd get up in the same time every day. Like when I was in work, and it was normally about 6:30ish in the morning. Kind of like shower and stuff, and then I was eating breakfast between like 6:45 and 7ish, and listening to like some dialogue passively say in the morning that I'd pull in from a YouTube video into the link for like quarter of an hour,
Mm-hmm.
and then I listened to that for like the 15 minutes while I eat my breakfast. Then have about an hour of solid study in the morning. Then about half an hour on the tram, maybe like reviewing flashcards or something, and then it'd be the last like 20 minutes walking to work. And when I was walking, I'd be listening to stuff like while I'm walking as well. So it's like semi. I'm like trying to pay attention, but it's like you're walking, so like obviously you're gonna be paying attention to like cars and things and
Mm-hmm.
stuff as well. So it's not the same as like having your full attention. So I did a lot of that, and then in the evening I just tried to like not watch stuff in English and just if someone invited me out for tea, I'm gonna go out with my friends or whatever. But I'm not gonna like isolate. I mean, maybe I should now, but I wasn't gonna isolate
Right.
myself. I was gonna
Yeah.
isolate myself and then lock myself indoors. Just try and like make whatever TV and games and stuff I do watch or play in the target language.
Yeah.
And in Taiwan, most of the time now, like I was when I'm walking about, sometimes I listen to the dialogues from the university. Sometimes I listen to other stuff like podcasts and things. But recently, I've just been listening to music because I feel like I get enough. I get so much active exposure now. Like most of my days in Mandarin, so I don't feel
Right.
like I have to force it too much because I'm studying at the university here, like at the Chinese course. My friends here are Taiwanese. I only watch really Taiwanese YouTube and Netflix. So when I'm like walking about, I'm like, oh, I don't really need this time that much. So I'll just find something I like put on some music or something, and maybe it help with pronunciation or something. Maybe I don't
Right.
know,
I
but yeah.
I'll listen to stuff during the day until I get to the point where I can decipher. Like basically, I passively listen until I get to the point to where I can recognize the words, where it doesn't just sound like one stream of sound,
Mm,
and then I kind of stop. And the reason is because I felt like I started advancing quicker. If I listened passively for 4 hours and studied actively for 30 minutes, I did not get anywhere near as close to advancing as fast as I would if I passively listened for an hour but actively studied for an hour. Like
mm.
I maybe I didn't give it long enough to really test that out, but that was just my kind of feelings on it.
Well, my experience, the passive stuff's like I don't know if it's if at best it's a supplement,
Hmm.
and the time that you like the time where you seem to make the most gains, I think, is when you're like actively focused or actively trying to watch and engage and enjoy something, speaking with real people, listening to something, watching something you like, and you're actually like this is the no distractions, like your phone's like turn into flight mode or whatever, and just focusing on this thing, not like
Right.
half watching, half on WhatsApp or
Yeah.
whatever. Like the more I think, like the more you can increase the quality of your attention, the quality of your attention, then I think the faster you can progress.
Yeah. Getting the material that that you are interested in, and actually, you talking about TED Talks, that I don't know why I've never thought of that before. I think I'm going to start diving into some Spanish TED Talks just to kind of maintain, because I've been complaining a lot lately about how rusty my Spanish is, and you don't have to I don't have to dedicate a lot of time to it outside of just
Mm,
watch a 30-minute TED Talks. Like that's all I got to do because I
mm.
understand Spanish, and that'll be enough to just at least keep it fresh.
I
So
feel like a lot of CC subtitles as well. I think they actually have TED Talks Espanol.
cool. Yeah, I'm gonna have to check that out because I feel like that's super interesting. When you do you go to like a TED Talks for Mandarin Chinese, or do you just kind of search a topic that you're interested in, or well, not even for
Um,
TED Talks, but just for YouTube in general?
well, a lot of the time I used like the function in YouTube to try and search for topics I was interested in. Others channels are recommended by friends, and then others are once you start watching. The good thing about YouTube is it recommends videos to you.
Hmm.
So the more you use it in your target language, the more it recommends similar things to the things you're already watching. So you can
Right.
kind of like start off with like say 5 channels, and then now you realize you like subscribe to like 30 things that you like in Chinese.
Right.
The TEDx talk I watched, I literally just like I knew the guy was quite famous, so I just took a punt and typed in "bo n" TED Talk into YouTube. I was like, oh damn, he does a TED Talk. Okay, I'll listen to this then. Yeah. I did listen to
Nice.
some TED Talks about language learning in Chinese.
Mm-hmm.
Something about the echo method. But yeah, she was not Taiwanese. She was, I don't know where she was from. Maybe I think she was Western, but fucking hell, she spoke really good Chinese. Like
Really?
the camera was quite zoomed out, and it took me a long time to realize. Oh wait, she's not Taiwanese. Oh fucking hell, that's
Whoa.
impressive. But yeah, I think she lived in Taiwan for like 30, 40 years or something. So, but you
Oh
know,
wow. Huh.
um, but yeah, I watched some of the TED talks I've watched were not even Taiwanese people, but there's some good stuff out there.
Yeah, that's what I've always thought would be. Because like when people like, I think I've even talked to you about it, like in on Facebook or whatever, and you'll be like, search for something you're interested in. But what I'm interested in is language learning. So like, maybe that is something I need to look up, like, a TED talk in Greek about learning, X language or something. So I think it would be interesting to, or even if I'm looking up Spanish, I don't know if Greek would be a good idea right now because I've just got a few hundred words under my belt, but it would still be interesting to see.
I think for Spanish, maybe for Greek, I don't know. Steve Kaufman's books available for free on Link
Yeah,
with all like the audio. So I read that in Spanish. I read it in Chinese as well, and I also read Benny Lewis's book just in Chinese like a few months ago. And that was quite interesting.
oh
But I
the
mean, if
I
anyone
didn't.
watches this and sorry,
I was gonna. I don't think I realized. I knew that he had released it. You're talking about Fluent in 3 months.
mm,
I don't know if I. I guess it makes sense that he released it in other languages. I never even thought about that.
yeah. So I was gonna say if anyone knows any YouTube channels or YouTubers who talk about language learning in Chinese, let me know. I mean, I follow a guy called Adi, and he talks about how to learn English and has stuff on, so that's sort of similar. And he has
Hmm.
sometimes has like English teachers on, and they talk about like different methods and like selective reading and reading for pleasure and things. So
Yeah.
his channel's quite good, Adi Ingwen. But again, some of the time it's just like teaching specific English, and I'm just like, yeah, I don't really care about this.
Right. Right. Like certain. I wonder too. Like when you watch that, do you ever watch those videos and think to yourself, I mean, that is correct, but we don't really ever say that.
Yeah, quite a lot.
I'm sure because that's
I feel like some of the times they like use it's like that they're trying to like show how good their English is sometimes, and it's like, well, yeah, okay, like it's technically correct, but that sounds really unnatural in this situation. Like, you don't walk into a restaurant and go, "Wow, this tastes absolutely, I don't know, like this is absolutely decadent," or "This tastes fabulous." It's
yeah,
like just say, "Yeah, this is some tasty stuff," like
yeah.
who speaks like that. Yeah,
That's
I find a lot. Yeah,
that's my big not complaint. I love this guy. I think this guy is absolutely fantastic. So I'm gonna prerequisite this by saying this in no way, shape, or form is me being negative towards him. But one of my biggest complaints about Lampriello is his English. He's so concerned about sounding native that it doesn't sound native. Like he sounds too good. It doesn't sound natural sometimes because he'll like overly describe something, or you know what I mean. Like it him trying to sound insanely native makes him not sound native.
I don't
He's
know
very,
if
very good. Very good.
I think I've watched some of Lucas stuff in the past. I think I think that there's some like his accent's very close to American.
Mm-hmm.
In quotation marks. I don't know which part of America, but it sounds kind of like American.
Right.
But then like odd bits, kind of you can tell he's not an English speaker, but it's like 99.9% there.
Right.
But in terms of like his vocabulary and stuff, I feel like he's more well read and has a bigger vocabulary probably than a lot of native speakers.
Oh, I'm
Um,
sure. Yeah. That's. I talked to Dakota about that last night. Like, when I speak, it's like you're getting like bottom barrel English here. Like, I don't use a lot of like big fancy words and stuff. Man, I get my point across as short as I can, like in terms of vocabulary.
I mean, yeah, that's what I always try to do. Lucas speaks like someone who reads a lot, but this is something maybe it's one of my university lecturers said before. But there's people that can use a lot of fancy big words, and these. One of my old lecturers says it's like anyone can use fancy big words, but a smart person can make something complicated sound simple by
Mm-hmm.
using it, expressing it in simple words and simple ideas. And that's something that always stuck with me. And when I went on to work later at a company, I'm not going to say the name, still my company now, so I don't want to say anything bad.
You're right.
um, I realized that the clearer and more concise you can explain something, rip all the jargon away, and just explain it as simply and clearly as possible, the more useful it is for people, and that's what people want to read because the message is important, not the wrapping.
Right.
So,
Now I wonder. I know that we're jumping all over the place here, but that's my
it's fine.
mind, man. That's I have a hard time. When you are out in Taiwan and you're ordering stuff, is there ever, even though you're in Taiwan, is there ever kind of a reaction of, oh wow, you speak Mandarin Chinese? Like, is there ever that kind of reaction?
Uh, yeah, quite a lot. Like, I think some people like, yeah, I think. Okay, I'll answer this by telling a funny story. My family came to Taiwan in July or February, and like people are so nice and so supportive, and like, well, you speak really good Chinese. Like, some my brother was driving the car, and then he like kind of stopped and let some guy go into the parking space, and we went in after. And then no, sorry, the guy let us go into the space, and then he went into the one after it. So my brother got out the car, and he just goes, "Shish it." And my brother speaks no Chinese. He just said "shish it," who's being polite.
Right.
And the guy goes, "Wow, 你讲中文讲得很好," which is like, "Well, your Chinese is really good." And Ryan looks at me like, "Luke, what the fuck's he saying?" Like, so I feel like the complimenting like point is quite low. Like I think yeah, a lot of foreigners here don't speak Chinese that well. So like if you can like communicate and stuff, it's people are quite surprised. I think especially because I have like quite white skin, blue eyes, and blonde hair. It's a bit more like
Right.
Western. So I went to an event, a social event on Thursday, and we were speaking about like some like random topics to do with like environmental protection and things, and then they were just like, "Whoa!" Like my Chinese is miles worse than the English, but I can kind of like express myself in a very uneloquent way at least and get my point across. And they were just like, "Whoa, you're really good," and I'm just kind of thinking, "No, I'm not," but okay, thank you. Yeah. So yeah, people are quite surprised. I feel like it was more. I got a better reaction when I was speaking Cantonese to people in the UK, which is not surprising, I guess. But
Right.
yeah,
Yeah, I can't remember who it was. I'm sure multiple people have made kind of this assessment, but I've always heard like don't like I know it makes you feel good when a native speaker tells you that you sound like a native or whatever, but in reality they're probably just being polite. Like don't put a whole lot of stock into it like that, and that's a great story to lead to that example.
I feel like a lot of people are really polite. I can give you another example. I went to hiking with my friends like a week ago, and one of the girls there was Japanese, and we were walking up the mountain, and I was like, "Oh, Gambaro," because some of my I don't really speak Japanese, but like some of my course mates are Japanese, and I picked up like a few words.
Mm-hmm.
Then the Vietnamese girl asked, "Oh, what's the difference between Gambaro and Gambate?" I was like, "Oh, well, Gambaro is like woman, we together, like go for it, and Gambate is like you can do it."
Yeah.
And then she was like, "Whoa, your Japanese is better than mine." I was like, "I literally said like two words."
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're like a native speaker, so don't be ridiculous. I feel like people are just like polite and just kind of over. So a lot of the time, I actually found this with, and I know people are being nice, and I had like a really bad mindset towards it before. When people would say this stuff, and it happens a lot in Hong Kong as well, they were like, "Whoa," you said like one word, and like, "Whoa, you're so good." I'm just there like, I took it as really patronizing because I'm just like,
Mm.
I'm putting like hours of effort into this thing. I say one word, and you're saying, "Whoa, it's so good." It's almost like to say as in like, well, you've learned one word and that's already really impressive. I'm like, no, I'm really seriously trying to learn this, and
Right.
I've kind of found that really patronizing almost.
It's almost
But
like
now, yeah,
it's almost like speaking to you like you're a baby, right? Like I have a 3 year old, and so if he does something like, for example, he just recently he wanted the front of his crib off, so he sleeps in a regular bed. Like he just sleeps in just a bed now. It's his
yeah,
big boy bed, and so like he slept the first night through, and we were like, "Oh my god, you did such a good job. You didn't fall out." Like it's almost like that. Like
yeah, yeah. That's how it felt for me, and I was kind of like, I kind of asked I spoke about this to one of my Taiwanese friends before, and I was like, because they said the same thing to me, and they were like, if I have like a 10-minute, 20-minute conversation with someone and then they say it, I'm like, fair enough. But if it's like straight away, I'm just a bit like, dude, come on.
Right.
And I kind of tell people, think about this. I'm living in the UK. I see a guy with an Asian face come out of a restaurant. He says hello, and I go, "Whoa, your English is so good." He'd be like, "Dude, fuck off."
Yeah.
Like, it sounds
Right.
so patronizing. I just think,
Do you think the
yeah,
part of the reason that you get that and other people get that is because of the mindset that Westerners, specifically American, but I think in the UK a little bit too, that people aren't bilingual, and so it's almost a shock.
um,
If that makes sense.
I,
Hopefully, I worded that to where it made sense.
no,
But
I understand. Like it's like if you go around and you speak, if you're an American speaking Spanish in Mexico or something, it's probably not that much of a shock. But I think a lot of Chinese and people in Asia kind of have the idea that it's really hard and or impossible for Westerners to learn the language. So I think some people are like generally quite surprised, and I think the percentage of people that know it is really low.
mhm.
So I think it's a mixture of them trying to like be encouraging and friendly, and probably surprised. Yeah. So I think it's coming from a good. Oh, just not my mic. I think it's coming from a good place, but and I kind of see that now, and I'm trying not to be like
Sure.
get annoyed by it because I'm just like, oh, shisha, I don't think anything of it. They just say it to everyone. Um, yeah, I think it's mostly just trying to be like nice and encouraging. Whereas like people speaking English now is like so normalized that
Right.
people are like, yeah, I mean, of course you speak English, dude. Like,
Right.
you live in the UK, so
Yeah. And then I always wonder if they have like if someone in is in Taiwan and it's say someone from Thailand or Cambodia or something to where they are still like would there be that much of a shock if they spoke Taiwanese versus someone from the West like America, Canada, or the UK?
I mean, I've heard my Japanese course mates get complimented on their Chinese before as well. So I think yeah, I think I think my Vietnamese course mate, I've heard them get complimented as well. I think Taiwanese are just generally quite friendly towards and kind of trying to be as encouraging as possible towards people learning their language.
Yeah.
Um, and I think people seem more surprised when Japanese speak it than Vietnamese actually, because I think there's a perception with Japanese that they can read and write Chinese but can't listen and speak.
Right.
So like, yeah, I think they get good reactions as well. But I feel like it's more surprising when it's a white person because I guess English is further away from it. We can rely on English. A Japanese person in Taiwan can't rely on Japanese, so they have like no other choice to learn it. So probably the amount that learn it is probably higher. I guess this is
Yeah.
yeah.
That's a good point. Because yeah, I guess it is kind of this idea that Japanese you can get by the symbols in terms of like kind of the similar structure, meanings, and stuff. Did you find it odd? I don't know much about Cantonese. When you write Cantonese versus Mandarin Chinese, are the symbols similar at least? Like in terms of like with the like obviously the word would be pronounced differently, but like for example, sure is it still the same symbol for like to be or is it like different?
Um, yeah, I'm just trying to think the best way to explain this.
Sure.
So the what's called standard written Chinese or standard vernacular Chinese is based off Mandarin Chinese. So when you're talking about people writing Chinese, texting Chinese, reading Chinese in newspapers, whether it's in Taiwan, China, Hong Kong, different parts, or if they're from like Fujian or whatever, and they speak Fujianhua, but they don't actually speak Mandarin, they'd always write in standard written Chinese, which is a standardized writing system. And the only difference would be whether it's in simplified or traditional characters, depending on if you're in Hong Kong or Taiwan or China. So when you're looking at books in Hong Kong and most magazines and newspapers and stuff in Hong Kong, it would be written in um, traditional characters and standard written Chinese,
Hmm.
which is like the official written language. But you that's not how people speak Cantonese. So there's a one of the most confusing things I found about learning Cantonese is there's a big spoken and written divide. So if you said like I don't know, 你是不是中国人, right? Is you are are you Chinese? And if you read those characters with Cantonese pronunciation, it's lei si bat si Zhongguo yan. Okay, so you can read it, but people don't speak like that. That sounds really weird. And people will say li hai ma Zhongguo yan na. These hai am hai. And the character they used to write that is the same one that's in Guanxi de Shi in Mandarin. So you can um, so the standard language is the same, but the spoken language is different. You
Right.
can write down the spoken language, and it uses different characters, but the overlap is still quite big. Maybe like 70% is the same, and it's like the places it varies are the most common characters, like the one to be, or like the like the one that looks like a bullseye in Heisig,
Mhm.
and stuff like that. Like they change, which makes sense because I think if you're talking about the standard written Chinese is going to be like the official language, and then the ones that are going to vary more from the norm will be like the spoken ones that you say all the time.
Right.
So if that makes sense, it's hard for me to explain because I'm trying to like don't know where.
I
There's a few concepts to start with. I'm not sure which one to
right.
start with first.
That kind of, I mean, it kind of makes sense to me because it kind of sounds like uh, kind of the idea of modern standard Arabic, where modern standard Arabic is a real thing, but that's not really nobody speaks that. Like,
Yeah,
but that's what they'll use for like news and print media and stuff like that.
yeah, exactly. So to give like a metaphor, let's say I'm living in England and I'm a guy from Newcastle with a very heavy accent and lots of slang, but how I pet and all that, way I and all those weird stuff they say in Newcastle. I love Newcastle, by the way, if no one's watching from here. Um, that's where my uni was. So, and they like speak with loads of heavy slang and stuff like that. And then the subtitles for what they're saying is in Queen's English. So like the more colloquial the topic is, there's going to be huge differences. But if that same person talks about science, the all the technical words are going to be the same because it's just one word for it, right? And the colloquial stuff is the bit that's varied. So I
Right.
kind of figure it's like someone speaking like a really slangy version of English with like Queen's English subtitles. So like you could write down word for word what he's saying. Doesn't mean everyone's going to understand it. So they just write Queen's English and then everyone can understand it, right?
Right.
So you can write is like it's spoken. And there are books, there are manga, there are comic books, and I can recommend a few. And if anyone's interested, and there is some YouTube channels when they write down Cantonese subtitles word for word what they're saying, but it's really rare. So the annoying thing about learning Cantonese is that when you're watching YouTube, a lot of the time they have standard, like traditional Chinese subtitles. It's standard Chinese, so they'd be writing shiba shi, the characters for that, in the bottom, even though that's not what they're actually saying. So it can be quite confusing when you can't actually use the subtitles to understand what they're saying a lot of the time. You have to like pay someone to transcribe it, or just listen and try to type in the
Right.
opinion in your phone.
Hmm.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
that seems like it'd be entertaining. Hold on, let's see. James says I have the odd case of being half white, half Filipino. So any language I try to speak, people sort of believe I could be from there and don't make a big deal of it. Yeah, I bet that would suck, man. Like, you work all this time and then like I know that Moses has talked about because people are like, why don't you learn Spanish better and stuff? And he's about reaction, and he said that in America it's if you go into like I even made this exact statement last night. Like, if I go into the Mexican restaurant here and I speak Spanish, they're not even going to be like, "Oh wow, you speak Spanish." It's just going to be like, "Oh, okay, cool, blah blah blah. Here
like
we go."
half the words like burrito and fajita and stuff are the same in English.
Yeah, right. So it's like, and even then, they could even be like, "Well, I mean, yeah, exactly. You know how to ask for something, and it's because you only have to know one word. Just be like, quiero, and then just insert the same word, burrito, quiero, nachos, quiero, whatever." So
Yeah, it's
that's
funny.
funny, man. But it's yeah, Cantonese seems. I know people love it, man. That's what's. I feel like it doesn't get a lot of play, but I feel like a lot of people that study Cantonese, it's like, I mean, I don't know if you feel the same way, but like I know that, dude, people act like it's like the most beautiful language. Like I know people who, I mean, it's their absolute top tier, no questions asked favorite language.
Well, like their personal favorite.
Yeah.
Um, if you listen to Cantonese, it sounds so cool. It's like I know, and there's so much media from Hong Kong. There's like Ip Man, Jackie Chan, Bruce Lee, Stephen Chow is what's it called? Shaolin Soccer is absolutely
Mm-hmm.
hilarious. There's like Journey to the West and like yeah, I feel like comparing Hong Kong dramas to Taiwanese, I feel like they're a lot better from Hong Kong,
And that's
and it
what
sounds so cool as well.
Yeah, and that's what I talked to you about. Which, and I'm not going to do this because I mean, as you know how I am anyway. But like I had even told you, I was like, man, maybe I picked the wrong Chinese because all the media that I would watch is Cantonese, um, and I think I'm honestly assuming it's just because you see that number, right? People look up Chinese and they're like, oh, how many people speak Chinese? And they see 2 billion or whatever, and it's like that's mainland China, but most of the people that migrate to America and a lot of your media and stuff is Cantonese.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's historical reasons for that as well, of why most people immigrated away
Yeah, I
from
know that you
Guangdong.
you had touched on that I think when I had spoke on your podcast, but do you want to touch on that here?
Yeah, like for what a few, not sure on the exact time period, but a few years ago, there was like I think there was like a famine in the south of China, and a lot of the people that were able to emigrate away from China and into places like the UK, Canada, and stuff like that were from Guangdong and like that sort of south area of China because they got hit with a really bad famine. So there was like a big wave of immigration away from China to these countries like in the West. Um, and then particularly in England as well. That was like the first wave of people like emigrating away from China noticeably, and then they were like setting up small communities and like Chinatowns and stuff. And then after that in the UK, after 1997, when we handed it back over to China, there was another big wave of immigration from Hong Kongers who were against the decision, emigrating from Hong Kong to other places, specifically England, because of the ties with the colony and all that. So like in the US, I think there's a lot of Cantonese speakers as well. But like in the UK, like until like the past like 5 or 10 years, as far as I can remember, like basically every single Chinese restaurant I saw was a Cantonese one.
Mm-hmm.
And like I think most people when they think of like imagining like Chinese in the head, they all say like oh ching chong whatever whatever whatever, and they also it sounds more like Cantonese sounds than Mandarin. I feel like that's all what like people like interpret as Chinese, and then they're like, yeah, imagine like, oh wow, this sounds kind of like different to what I'd imagined, you know?
Right. Yeah, I know. I have two Chinese restaurants near me, and I know that the one that's closest to me they speak Mandarin and Cantonese, and then there's one about 20 minutes away, and it's literally called like it's called Tre Ting. It's Tre Ting Cantonese food. Like it's literally a Cantonese specific restaurant.
Yeah. Although I think a lot of most Cantonese speakers now, in at least in the UK, can speak like Mandarin as well, at least in terms of like serving customers, because they have a lot of especially students now. There's a lot of Chinese students in the UK, so
Mm,
it's good for business to like them to be able to speak both, and it's not too far from like Cantonese. So I
right.
think a lot of them speak both, but like a lot of their mother language is Cantonese. Yeah.
Yeah, I just found out too. There's a well, dude. I mean, I don't know how it is in the UK, but in America, there's a Chinese spot every probably 10 to 15 minutes. Like, I mean, there's so many Chinese restaurants here, which is great. I mean, I love Chinese food, but like, um, there's a place in Princeton, which is again about 20 minutes away from me, and I actually just found out they are Taiwanese. And the only reason I found that out is because, of course, Americans aren't the brightest when it comes to certain things. So,
Yeah.
um,
Speak a
with
bit of Taiwanese to them and
with
see if they go crazy.
with all the stuff going on now with the virus and stuff, everybody stopped going to the Chinese restaurants. I guess people thought Chinese people just had it. You know what I mean? Like it just and now here it is.
Yeah.
It's flaring up, and
It's
so
worse in Europe now.
America has the
Yeah.
most cases.
Yeah.
We have over 100,000 cases here.
It's crazy.
Um, and so they made a post on Facebook and they were like, "We are not Chinese. We're Taiwanese. Please come eat at our restaurant. This is how we make a living." Like they had to literally plead with people, and they did. They said they were
Yeah.
Taiwanese, and I was like, "Man, I'm gonna have to tell Luke about that."
Yeah, you should go down and say at the if there's like a guy at the restaurant, there's like normally you go to night markets and you hear people call them like abe, which is like well the Mandarin is abo, but like abe is a Taiwanese and it means like uncle, and it's just like what you call like the generic person above your age. So if you go to like the night market, you're like oh abe, can you get me like some like stinky tofu or something?
Whoa.
It's quite funny.
Yeah, I need.
You can try.
I wanna go there and practice because I do know a little bit. You know, I can ask for food and I can talk about I like Chinese cuisine and whatnot. But like, I
Mm.
wonder how different like even the words like if I went in there and I was like 我中国菜, would that be like similar? Like I like Chinese food. I mean like
Yeah, I mean maybe it's a Taiwan site,
Taiwan Tsai, right? That would make sense. Yeah,
but
because Zhongguo
yes,
is literally middle land, right? Like
but
middle,
it's there's China because they're in their opinion they're the most important country, which makes sense. It's their language.
right? Interesting. I'm gonna have to do that. But
And to
it'll
set you
be
off on another mission,
yeah,
one of
yeah.
many.
Because I
But
can't
dude,
I can say
I've
a little bit.
sorry.
I was just saying because I can speak a little bit, so I might go in there and try that. Maybe once all this has died down, because I have a 3-year-old son, man, and I know that kids are good. Like I know that kids haven't really suffered in terms of as much as adults and stuff, but I still would just rather not go through that
Yeah,
if possible.
I mean,
So
kids are made of like magic and rubber. I'm sure that like
yeah,
bounce back in a day.
yeah.
Yeah, it's yeah. But I think one of the I think you'll probably appreciate this as well. I think one of the hardest things about learning a language is just trying like restraining yourself from going after like the new shiny one because I'm just like, oh, dude, like, my Cantonese is rusty, my Spanish is rusty. I want to kind of revive them, but like, oh, I have Japanese customers. Oh, learning Japanese would be so cool. But I'm like, oh, so I heard my friends speaking Taiwanese the other day. I can speak Taiwanese to them. I'm like, "Look, just calm down, to Mandarin.
Yeah.
It's quite be quite get quite excited sometimes and try to like want to do everything at the same time. Or at least that's I kind of
Oh,
get that sort of feeling that it can be hard to restrain
oh,
yourself.
I
But
do, and I usually don't restrain myself, and that's why I'm in the position that I'm always in. But I did think about. I think one thing that I am gonna do is I think I am gonna be smarter about it. I don't think I'm gonna try to learn 2 new languages at the same time because I can't even learn one at the same time. What I honestly think I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pick one new language. Which right now it's gonna be Greek, and that's because I really want to learn Greek. I'm going to stick with Greek. I'm having a really great time with it right now. And I'm making videos for Link, and I would hate to be like, oh, I'm not going to do this anymore. And they're going to be like, oh, cool. I guess we're never working together again. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one language like that, and then I'm going to work on a language that I'm already in, right? So, like, now I would learn Greek, and then I would revive and kind of dust off my Spanish.
mm,
and,
makes
and
sense.
and because I don't have to spend as much time. If I spent 20 minutes in Spanish reading a day, that's good because I'm not learning as much as I'm dusting off. I may pick up a word or two, but from where I already have so much exposure to the language, I can learn words easier because it's not as foreign to me.
Yeah.
And I think I'm going to go through a phase of learning a language and then honestly not adding anything and just going after what I already have. Like instead of dabbling in 1,000 different languages, I'm going to start saying, all right, Spanish now. So that's I'm gonna get my Spanish up to par, and then and be learning Greek, and then after that, I need to go into whatever else, and just kind of work them up. Um,
Mm.
because I
Yeah.
go ahead.
Sorry. Carry on. I was gonna say I think it comes down to what your goals are. So for me, I'm just kind of thinking like, oh, I really want to do all these things, but then I think, okay, well, what do I really want to do? I'm in Taiwan. I can speak to my Taiwanese friends in Chinese, obviously. I can speak to my Japanese friends in Chinese. So I don't really. So I kind of think, what was my goals at the moment? I really want to try and get Mandarin as high as I can, and anything else would be a distraction from that. So I try and analyze from the point of view, okay, what do I actually want? These things would be cool, but like, what do I
Mm,
actually want? And then it's this, and it kind of helps you focus in a bit more.
yeah.
And then I was wondering, I saw a video. I think Andy Roberts shared a video that talked about like video you did about like a 3 month challenge
Hmm.
and your response to 3 months challenge. And I think I watched the video when you were saying that like you can't expect to make mad gains and mad fluency in 3 months. It's just not realistic. And you said it questioned the obsession with 3 months challenges, but then you also said in the same video that you didn't actually make it to the end of the challenge.
You're right.
So I was kind of I found out a bit. I was quite confused
Uh,
by that. I mean, I was wondering if you wanted to touch on that a little bit because
yeah,
as
sure.
someone who's completed the Ad One challenge, I find of
No, I
I
think
agree with like basically 95% of what you said, but I think like it gives you a big boost to kind of keep on going even after the challenge ended. And I found
sure.
completing it, I was like so psyched and motivated. I was like, yeah, let's just fucking keep going, pedal
Right.
to the metal and just keep going.
I do wish that I would have touched on the add one. I think the add one challenge is fine. I genuinely do, and that's because it relies a lot less. I mean, it is self motivation, but seeing as how, from what I understand, you're talking to a bunch of people who are doing the same thing that you are. Like you're almost in like a group, and
Yeah,
I
you get
think
put in
that
like a mastermind group and there are
yeah,
like 4 or 5 people
I
speaking
think
every day about what you're doing.
I think that makes sense. My main thing, well, yeah, no, I've not made it to the end of 30 days or 90 days. I've not made it to the end of 30 days probably, but I've not made it to the end of 90 days. And I also know that that's a completely hypocritical thing of me to say. Um, I'm the type of person where I feel like I know. Um, the thing is, I know how to do this. I just don't. Does that make
Mm-hmm.
sense?
Yeah.
Um, my main point of the video wasn't necessarily. I think, and this is the problem with me not scripting stuff, which again is part of my thing because I whatever comes off of my head. I mean, that's the way that I feel and speak. But like, I think if I would have sat back and kind of thought about the way that I was wording stuff, I would have worded stuff a little bit differently because I'm not against the idea of it per se. It's just the idea. I think a lot of it comes off of the hinges of a lot of YouTubers and polyglots in the community with this idea of total fluency. And I'm not saying Benny Lewis. I'm not saying the Fluent in 3 months because I understand that's a brand and stuff. But like, just the idea of learning something to a complete whole in that time, and like the way that, especially in America, and a lot of that has to do with just me being in America because even like weight loss and all this stuff, everything is promised on a 90-day thing, right? You see P90X videos and it's in 90 days look like this, and it's
So
like
what's P90X?
it's just a workout, like a super hardcore workout program, and it's
Okay.
90 days, and that's when your results happen. But like you have to keep going, and again, completely hypocritical on my part because I don't, and I get that, so I understand. But like, it's just this idea that people have, like I don't.
Yeah.
And then I did have a comment that kind of summed up a little bit. And it may have been you. I don't even know who. I don't remember who it was right off. But somebody said the reason 90 days, in their opinion, is because that's in 90 days that's enough time for you to at least see some sort of gain, whether it be
Yeah.
if in languages you can determine, okay, what have I learned in 3 months, like because it's hard to do that week to week.
Yeah, I mean, the promise for the you said you had no problem with the Add One challenge. The promise they said was hold a 15-minute conversation in your target language after 90
Mm.
days. Now, that is a solid, realistic,
Hmm.
achievable goal, in my opinion, after 90 days of study.
Yeah,
So I think that's why it works.
I would love to do I would love to do the add one challenge legitimately.
Although I
My
think it's actually changed the name to the Fluent in 3 Months challenge for anyone who's watching it now, because
Okay.
it's changed ownership from Brian Kwong.
Gotcha.
So
Okay. I need to get into it. My biggest issue right now is financially doing it.
oh
Um,
yeah,
but would you? I mean, I know that you did it. I mean, cost versus what you do is totally worth it.
well, I was quite a special case if you're talking about cost benefit because I won, so I got a free flight to Hong Kong. So I'd say it was definitely worthwhile.
Fair enough.
In terms of like cost benefit, yeah, like pay 90 quid and get like an £800 or whatever it was plane ticket. I thought it was worthwhile.
Nice. Yeah, that's not too bad.
I think the rewards have changed now though. Like I think when it got given to Fluent in 3 months, they increased the price and reduced the reward. When I was like a bit like,
Ah.
okay,
Yeah, I think I
yeah.
would like to do. I think that would be a fun thing to do, and maybe at some point I will. Maybe I can save up and do it because I think
But there's no
you
reason
know
why you can't do a bunch of like get a bunch of your friends and just do something together. Like speak to your friend once in a while about what they're learning and just do it without the challenge. I think it's the idea of having a 90 days and accountability and uploading yourself to the public to put videos on YouTube. It's something
mm,
about like doing it public and stuff. So you could just easily just find 1 or 2 friends and do it for free outside the challenge.
yeah.
This James Anthony asked, "Are you guys
Oh,
doing Lang Jam by any chance? Do you know what Lang Jam is? I've not heard of that."
yeah, Ling Jam. I'm not doing Ling Jam, but I know a bunch of people that are. Ling Jam is ran by a woman on. I know her from Twitter. Her name is Sandra.
Okay.
She's from Germany, and basically it kind of exposes you to new languages that you may not have ever studied. Usually, you have like a 3 day window. I know it started last night at midnight, and I think it's running through Sunday at midnight, so like 2 full days. And basically, you go in and you pick these criterias of what kind of alphabet are you interested in? What kind of this? And then it sends it through some sort of thing, and it basically pops up two different languages, and it will, and it's just like, hey, study one of these languages for 2 days, and it's just kind of a way to. I did language jam. I did one of the first language jams that she did.
Is it like this?
And
I don't know if you can see my screen. I'm
yep,
trying to share
yeah, that's it
on
right there.
Twitter. Jam. Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
So it's like kind of speaking. I was just showing people if they're interested.
Yeah, it's just getting people kind of into the idea, of learning or studying a new language, just to see if there's something out there that you may not normally look in, and then be like, oh wow, that's actually really cool.
Mm.
So that's all that is.
Just to try and like spark interest for stuff you may not even know you had, and like get interested in like new ideas and stuff. I guess
Right.
sounds pretty interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
I'm not a big fan of dabbling.
Mm.
I've like I've said that I've dabbled in Japanese a little bit. I just like downloaded the Anki deck and went through some of the hiragana and stuff. But this sounds kind of weird in my head. I don't know if you've ever done this before, but in my head, dabbling or like using stuff like Duolingo and things like that, kind of like use it to like suppress the desire to actually go learn it properly. Because I dabble a bit, I'm actually like, oh, this will actually be a lot of work. I can't be bothered, and then go back to Chinese.
Right.
To try and like keep me on track. So
Yeah.
that's always what I've kind of done with like dabbling and stuff in the past. But I think for if you're a language lover, it sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's
I
cool.
mean, not saying I'm not. I just
No,
I don't know.
I get what you're saying.
I'm more like
Some people enjoy it, some people don't. Yeah. Honestly, a lot of people would probably kill to have the focus that you have, like, because you go strong on it, man. Like, because I know, I mean, you've been studying Mandarin for 11 months, right? And I
yeah,
mean,
10, 11 months.
so you're, you know, that's more a cumulative time than I've studied just about anything. You know what I mean? Like, it's impressive, and that's one thing I want to get, and maybe you can help me work on that. Not, I'm not saying like hold me accountable, but like, you know what I mean? Like, maybe you can, just talking to you just over the course of time can kind of help me be. And now that my goals are kind of set, like now that my goals have changed in terms of why I want to learn, I'm hoping that that can help me maintain focus. Monday will be the end of my 4 weeks of Greek, which is, I mean, that's, so I'm a month into Greek, and I don't have any kind of burnout or anything like that. Which I'm also taking it slow. I'm not, I think a lot of time, we can talk about this for a second. Do you think that? Do you think? There's my son outside the door. Do you?
Sounds like having a great time.
Yeah. He probably wanted to come in here. My wife probably was like, no, he's talking. But do you think that jumping in too hardcore right out of the bat is a bad thing? Because if I look at every language that I've stopped, the first week I'll spend 6 or 8 hours a day just barreling through, right? And it's almost like that's just kind of like, it's almost like I get to a point where I'm like, ugh, like I tire myself out.
It's an interesting question. I think some of it depends on personality. I think some of it depends on what you're doing with those 6 hours. So when I was learning Cantonese originally, I was going through Teach Yourself book,
Mhm.
like with all the dialogues and stuff, and I was doing an hour a day, and I was like, right, I'm getting serious. I'm gonna up this to 2 hours a day. I think I lasted 3 days and was like, no, fuck this. I'm going back to an hour a day. I can't handle this. But then a few like a month later, I was like, oh, I think I can do a bit more again. So instead of doing more of the same, like I was like, oh well, I'll just do a few flashcards a day, or like I'll just watch like one episode from a TV drama a day. And like I always found for me, like doing that like hour to an hour and a half. Or like, if I'm doing focused study time with dialogues, it's normally an hour, and then anything on top of that, it's just like generic fun stuff and immersion. So it doesn't actually feel like study. It just feels like sitting down and like just engaging with something you like.
Right.
So I kind of feel like with that sort of thing, it's okay. And I feel like it's easier to do that with Spanish than Chinese, because you don't understand so much in the beginning, you can get bored. So
Right.
maybe with stuff like Chinese or Japanese or like Arabic or Korean or whatever, it'd be harder to get those burnout things, because you just literally, it just sounds like gobbledygook and you don't understand anything at the start.
Right.
Um, But when I get burnout, it's when I do too much monotonous stuff for too long. So whether it's Anki or it's boring dialogues from a textbook
Mm.
or someone like that, I can't handle it.
Yeah.
So, and then I find the more advanced I get in a language, the easier it is to spend more time. So like at the stage I'm at now, my Mandarin, I spend like more time in Mandarin than English. I think today's a bad example because I spoke to one of my mates this morning on Skype for about 2 hours, and now I'm speaking to you. But on the average
Right.
day, I think I maybe spend like half an hour in English, and the rest of it's like in Chinese. So, and I think it gets easier and easier, and you kind of build up momentum as you go. So I feel like if you want to start small and then expand,
Mm.
that's the best way to do it, and that's the way I did it with Cantonese. But if you do jump in and you can stick with it, you can get quicker progress, and that can motivate you to keep going.
Right.
So I think some of it's on personality type, and for me personally, I've always been quite like an obsessive personality type. So if I did something, I'm like, this is my thing now, and I'm just doing this. When I was younger, it was video games a lot of the time. Now it's probably become something more productive. But
Right.
yeah, I
It
don't
make
know if that makes sense at all.
No, it does. I think you're right. Starting slow and then kind of easing into it, and that's exactly what I'm doing with Greek because, like, my link account, I'm finishing up for it's 3 weeks using link, but I'm at 230 known words.
Mm.
So that's not a lot, but it's also been a pace that I'm super comfortable and satisfied with.
Yeah, but like you've got to deal with the new alphabet as well, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So it's going to be a slower start,
yeah. And that's what
compared to
I'm
like say Esperanto or Spanish or something.
right, and that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking after I get through a couple of more stories, and especially if I can find like some sort of podcast, like beginner podcast to import or something like that. I think that's exactly how it is. I think you're going to learn. Maybe the first day you might learn 2 or 3 words. Well, the next day you might learn 2 or 3 more, and then as you become kind of like what I was talking about with my Spanish, from where I know a lot of Spanish, if I see a word once, it's a lot easier for me to remember now because I am familiar. It's just like in English. If somebody tells you this means this, you know English, so you're good. Like you can start
Yeah.
using that word. Like, not that I'm that level in Spanish, that's in no way shape or form what I'm saying, but from where I am more exposed to it, I can pick up
So
words a lot quicker.
it's like those words are like more sticky in your brain.
Right.
So,
It's,
yeah, because I think in the way our brain works, in terms of if you remembered every piece of information you came across, you would all go mental pretty quickly. So
mm-hmm.
our brain's constantly cycling through information and kind of organizing it in what it sees as important information and what it sees as irrelevant information. And it's this sort of like shuffling and recycling of information that keeps us, that kept us alive and made us get to the point we did today. And in terms of, you got to remember, this is why we were so good at remembering pictures. It's like, okay, you got to remember visually, where's the river with the water source? Where's
Mm.
the bush with the berries? Or where's the rabbit hole or whatever? And then all these abstract, weird concepts that sound like, not that relevant to our lives. It just kind of our brain goes, well, forget about it.
Right.
Um, and I feel like the more infrastructure you have for a language, the more related concepts you have in your head to do with those things it's saying, whether it's the sounds, whether it's the grammar, whether it's just, just the general feeling of or something, or maybe like a synonym for the word in the same language. So I feel like the more structures and language you have in your head, it's telling your brain this piece of information coming in is more and more useful. So it
Right.
gets easier and easier to pick up new words.
Right.
It's kind of how I understood it.
Yeah. That maybe makes sense.
So
It's a weird. It's a I don't know. I do know that I think part of the reason I feel like I've always and studying is something that you learn how to do just as time goes, right? You learn what works for you. And I think a lot of the reason that I've quit so many languages is because I'm not studying beneficially to me.
mm,
I am way too reliant on applications. And I don't think that they're bad, but like I'm way too reliant on your Lingo Deers, your Duolingos, your stuff like that, versus once I get some sort of grasp, starting to just seek out native content. And I think it's just because that takes additional effort. Like language learning isn't you can't be lazy. You know what I mean? Like And I think that's part of, and it's all a work in progress. I'm working on myself in that regard, and hoping that I can make those changes. But
Do you not think that putting in time to going out to seek all these extra materials and interesting stuff in itself is quite interesting? Because I'm just curious. Like whenever I
mm,
start looking at new language, and I'm looking at trying to decide what I'm going to use, and like, oh, this looks really good. This looks really good. I find that process like really fun.
mm,
Of like sorting through what looks cool and like trying to plan out in my head like some sort of game plan. Like
right. I
maybe this
mean,
is a personality thing. I always found that really fun.
yeah,
Personally.
I think I need to get more, into that. I think sometimes, like with Japanese, I almost felt overwhelmed because there was so much material. I know that that may not
Mm.
make sense, but like I can remember going to like NMLN, or what is that, Daiweeb site or whatever, and there was so, I mean, everything you want is on there, and so I would spend 30 minutes looking through shows, and instead of just boom picking one and going. But then on the other hand, Greek, which I've not researched a ton, but they don't produce a lot of media, like home native media, like in terms of, obviously there's way less people from Greece than there are Japan or whatever, but like I don't know. I do need. I'll probably honestly spend a part of the day today going through some stuff, because I
Mm.
think that I think that would help a lot, getting material like that. And then Spanish. I mean, I can hear Spanish every day of my life. So
Well, there's the same problem with Spanish though, right? There's just so much out there.
yeah,
Like there's a new season of La Casa de Papel soon. New season of Elite uh, as well coming out soon, I think. Or it's just come out. I can't remember. Yeah,
um,
there's so much out there for Spanish as well, and I was just like, with Cantonese, I was like, what's out there? Oh, okay, I've got Cantonese class101.com or teach yourself. I'll just try both, I guess. Try one for a week, try another one for a week, and see which one I like better. It's
yeah,
really easy to decide. So I get where you're coming from. Like the lack of resources almost forces you to focus and stick with one thing, so you don't bounce around as
yeah,
much.
yeah. That's. I think that that's a. I mean, honestly, sometimes I think lack of resources, and I think that might be why I have an easier time sticking to Greek, because basically I use Link exclusively. I find the Duolingo course to be absolutely aggravating.
Why?
In terms of Greek, just it's my number one complaint about Duolingo, man. It's a multi-million-dollar corporation, and they do not have native audio, and that is bothersome. Like, they make enough money where they could. I was talking to somebody
Is that
yesterday.
just for Greek or for all languages they don't have native audio?
For mostly, they have, it's still the computer-generated voices for Spanish. Like, it's absurd, and like, you can't tell me they're in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which is a massive, massive city, and you can't tell me that they could. First off, Pittsburgh would have a native speaker of probably any of those languages. They could call somebody and be like, hey, we're not going to pay you, but we'll offer you a full year of premium Duolingo if you'll record the dialogues for these sentences, and I guarantee you it could be done in a week.
Yeah, it's just maximizing profits.
Yep. But yeah, because they charge now. They charge, and everything is still community funded, like community done. Like,
Okay.
I don't know.
I also thought Duolingo was free. I've not really used it much myself in the past, other than like I think I've dabbled a little bit with the Japanese one, and I always found it
Mm,
quite annoying using Duolingo because I felt like the sentence that it gave me was quite weird. I don't know if it's better now, but like it was always like talking about like rabbits and
mm-hmm.
things and like zebras, and I was like, I don't even know how to say like you or he or she. Like, I was
Yeah.
like, why are you teaching me the word for zebra or penguin or something? I always found
Yeah.
it quite strange.
Crab. They'll teach you
And
crab
then
early on, and like,
and then it always goes like, oh, this is the lesson for all the colors, and I'm like, okay, but I was fun the kind of going through like category. Like I'm gonna learn all the colors now. I feel like you just like go through some context, and some of the colors are gonna come up, and some of them won't. You can kind of learn them like more organically. I found more interesting.
yeah. No,
And
I
the thing
agree.
about the thing I didn't like about Duolingo is you had to like wait or like it tells you can't go into this until you've done this like particular lesson. I'm just like, but if I want to go study about travel and stuff, I don't want Duolingo to wait to tell me I can before I do it. I just want to do it
Yeah.
now.
Yep.
I kind of found like the fact that it tries to like force the direction you go in quite annoying.
No, I agree.
Um,
I don't like that at all. I don't like the
but
idea of limiting. And I get the it builds off of previous lessons, but like but it shouldn't really matter if you went and if you did the first couple of lessons and got that base I, he, she, it, they, whatever, and then you go to I want to buy a plane ticket. Well, once you learn that, you can just carry on. I mean, it's I don't know. I
Yeah,
agree.
I mean,
I
like,
don't like
I'm
that.
sure a lot of people would be happy to get the answer wrong more times and learn something they actually want to, as opposed to do something that's easy and
Yeah.
boring.
Yep. Well, Luke, I
Yeah.
know I know you said you've got some stuff to do around midnight your time. It is 11:47 a.m. here, so I assume it's 11:47 p.m. there.
Yeah,
Um,
I've still got some time, but yeah.
we can wrap up. Do you have anything in closing that you want to say? Anything?
Mm, Not really. I know you touched upon input versus output earlier. I'll just go back to that a little bit and say I wouldn't. Um, I know you mentioned Matt versus Japan's channel a few times. I know a few people subscribe to Mia come from the MIA community, so I'm
Hmm?
just in terms of like I know a lot of people in the community really get like a lot of anxiety from saying, "Oh, I can't speak an absolute word," and like I can't output at all. And I don't think it's worth worrying about it that much. Like if you find it fun speaking earlier on, I don't think there's anything wrong with it.
Hmm.
And I find like as long as you're getting a lot of input exposure, then it should be okay.
Yeah.
Having said that, my accent's pretty bad and my pronunciation's not great at the moment in Mandarin, but oh well.
Nah, it's good. It's good. I mean, I've kind of broken that rule. I input a lot, but I when I do Greek, usually whatever news story I'm working on, I'll go through it once and then I go through it again in
Mm.
sentence mode on Link, and I shadow it. I'll play the audio and then I will shadow it, and then I'll play it again and I'll shadow it 2 or 3 times.
Do you think that helps it stick in your like active vocabulary better?
Yeah, that's the main reason I did it. I noticed once I started doing that, um, like for example, like I heard it a bunch, and it's all right, so I'm not gonna immediately say this word correctly because the pronunciation in Greek is still weird, but like katis katissimo katakirion zon, which is it's literally store pets, a store of animals and pets. It's a pet store, and I couldn't do it. And once I started shadowing, I was like, oh, katistimas katakirionzon. Like I can't forget it now. Like I can recall that word, which is such a random word, or like sikonome, which is I wake up, or like sekinai, which is like it begins. Like there's a lot of stuff from where I've shadowed. There's no question. Like I hear it and I immediately know it. There's no translation. So shadowing has helped me tremendously, which is, I mean, that's output early on.
I always find it really weird what sticks in your brain and what doesn't. Like, there's some words like I hear once and go, when am I ever going to use that? And then
Mm-hmm.
like it sticks in my brain. And then there's other words that I've seen reading at least 20 times. And I'm like, why can't I read this properly yet?
Mm-hmm.
You know, yeah, like, some things you just hear once and just for some magic, it just sticks in your brain. Other times you can see it like a ton and it just doesn't. So
Yeah,
I was
dude.
kind of quite odd.
I'm in a segment right now where it's like a dude. Well, not in a segment. This is one of the earlier on stories, but like it's about a guy wanting to take a vacation um, to France. If you've ever done the mini stories, you know what I'm talking about. But like one of the sentences he says, basically going to France is expensive.
Mm.
I cannot. I've read that story probably 10 times. I've listened to it probably 30. I cannot remember the word for expensive. I kind
Like
of
passively, or you can understand it if he
I
says
can
it, or you can't
understand it
remember
if
how
he
to call
says
it.
it, but I can't remember it to recall it. I
Mm.
think it's something like agoras or something maybe like that. I may be wrong, but I can't remember it. I don't know, man. It's really weird. Like I think it's the only yellow word I have in that story.
Yeah,
Like I cannot. It's really weird.
I know what you mean. Well, like something that I feel like has come up in conversation a few times for me is like the word slavery because we're talking about. I don't know. I talk about weird things with my friends sometimes.
Mhm.
I talk about like, traditions in America, not traditions, but like stuff that's happened in the past. But and I was trying to remember like it's something that I can sort of understand it now, eventually. But like I'm trying to say it, I'm just like, wait, what is it like? Nudi, nudi. Can't even remember. But I'm like, I, I think the last time heard it was like Thursdays. It wasn't even that long ago, and I'm like, I've already seem to have forgotten it. It's quite odd. Like it seems to like fall out your head.
Yeah,
But
it is
yeah,
very
that's
interesting.
part of the progress. And also one thing I did want to touch on is you said like that
Akrivi.
you're looking.
Akrivi is the word. Akrivi. Sorry. So I was way
You
off.
said that you've looked at like, see me sticking with something for like 11 months
Hmm.
as a long time. Like fucking hell, I looked at like the idea that people like Dogan or Matt have been with Japanese for like 10 years, or like that like Vladimir Skolcha did Chinese for like 10 years. I'm
Hmm.
just there like, that's a
Yeah,
long time.
it is.
That is a lot of time and dedication. I have a lot of respect for people like that.
No,
Um,
they knew what they wanted and they went after it. I
yeah.
mean, and Matt's. I don't speak Japanese, but when Matt speaks Japanese, it just feels different than like other people who have learned Japanese speaking. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I watched his entire interview with Steve Kaufman in Japanese, and I didn't have a clue what they were saying. I just watched it because I was just like, there's something just like enchanting, or like just it's just something that feels so cool about watching it. I don't know what you're saying, but
yeah,
I mean, funny enough, I kept on hearing the word Benkyo and I googled it and it meant to learn. So I was like, oh, there you go, comprehensive
yeah,
for like
comprehensible.
immersion.
Yep,
Yeah,
thank you. Yeah.
but I actually gave, I think it was that, I was like Nihongo o Benkyo sta or something. I was like, I want to learn Japanese
Hmm.
or something. Um, I don't, probably wrong actually, but I actually showed a video of Matt speaking to one of my course mates, and she like almost fell off of her chair when I showed him the video. She was like, eh?
Whoa.
Did you know that when Japanese do the surprise thing, they're always just like,
Eh.
eh?
Yeah.
American, she was like, Mexico right now? Is he American? I'm just like, she's like, wow, so good, that's in there. It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Cause see,
yeah,
I
like
mean, I know
she looked
he
like
even
quite
studies like
surprised.
pitch accent and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I know he studies that. There's my son again. Well, cool, man. I'm gonna we'll wrap up there, and I appreciate you for coming on and chatting about some stuff, and hopefully I'll chat with you soon. Because like I said, man, my big thing right now is I really want to. I do need to start focusing, and I do think for my channel to be taken serious, like I do. I mean, it's dabbling and it's fun and it's you got new stuff, but I think I do need to at least show some sort of improvement past midway through A1 status. You know what I mean?
So what is it you want at the moment? What's your like goal?
Yeah.
What's it you're going after?
So right now, I'm gonna stick with Greek, and my main reason is because of there's a Greek restaurant near me, and I want to speak to the people in there. And that which again is what my goals are centered around. My goals are centered around being able to use the language where I'm at. It's not as much about watching media anymore. Like I do want to watch native media to learn, but like I'm not like I want to learn Japanese because I just want to watch Japanese TV all day. Like that's changed completely. And then from where Spanish is my strongest language, I thought why not try to get into that upper. I took a test. I took a certification test, and I am a certified B1 speaker, but that's probably slipped. Why not try to improve that? Why not try to get, instead of just saying I hit B1, why not try to get past that? Why not try to get to a B2? I don't know if I would hit C1. I mean, I don't know. I know that you're talking years of just experience and exposure to it, but why not try to become an advanced speaker in anything? Like, why not?
Yeah, I think always one of the biggest problems for language learning is that you think the language is more useful the higher level you get it, but the higher level you get it, it takes so much more time to improve it. So it's always
Yeah.
like that thing of like diminishing returns,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like if you were to say spend like a year on or like a year or like half a year on Spanish now, you can make some improvements and it'd be more useful. But if you spent that on like say Portuguese, you'd improve that a lot more than if you
Yeah.
went on Spanish. So it's like well, so it's that thing of like depth versus breadth, and it's a very hard polyglot dilemma, I
Yeah.
guess if you want to call it that.
And I
But yeah,
know that if I spent 6 months hardcore on Spanish, I would be at a level that I would never even consider touching again. Like in terms of like I would be perfectly fine, and I know that. And I look at where I was a year ago, and I was like, let's learn all these things, and I've learned nothing. And I mean, I could have spent 6 months. I don't mind Spanish. Spanish doesn't bother me. I love hearing it. Like I literally could do it. I just don't. I don't know.
yeah.
So,
Nice. Oh, good.
but
Best of luck.
yeah, well, I appreciate that, man. And everybody go check out Luke on YouTube. And I think you're full time fluency everywhere, right? Twitter and at least Twitter. Your account is full time fluency, I believe.
I should probably know this.
What is
Yes.
your Twitter
Actually,
account?
yes.
I think
Other than that, I look Truman.
or yeah, you can
But I
probably
was,
just search
I
that.
was originally going to be more serious on my website, and then my website's kind of been really lazy, and I just kind of stuck with YouTube. So
Yeah, YouTube.
uh, let me. Yeah, no, it's the same thing. It's the same handle.
Full time fluency. Okay, yeah. So go check Luke
And
out. Does a lot of awesome content and such. I enjoy watching your videos, and that's a shoot, as we'd say in wrestling. That's the truth. There's some new maybe new English for you. I don't know.
yeah, I don't
Um,
know. Like, that's the shooters, and like that's the truth.
yeah, that's a shoot.
Because like most stuff in like WWE is not the truth. Then is that what
Right.
it's going off for?
Yeah, you might hear somebody say sometimes I've literally had conversations with people and been like, is that a shoot? And that just yeah, is that real? Is that uh you know yeah. So there you go, learning new
Yeah,
English today too.
yeah.
So well,
English
look,
teacher.
yeah, I appreciate that, man. I'm gonna end this live stream. Thanks for anybody who watched. Thanks for whoever watches later when this is not live. But yeah, that was Luke Truman. Thank you, Luke.
Thanks so much. Bye.